And when my mom noticed that something was really wrong was when I was spitting food out in the trash can, and she asked me, Hallie, what's wrong? I said, I didn't know if it was mine. That's crazy. But to me, it made sense. Hey everyone, welcome to the Just Confessing podcast. My name is Hallie, and I am passionate about learning how to overcome religious OCD and fear. So let's learn together. Today we're diving into the topic of intrusive thoughts that are embarrassing. So, everyone that struggles with OCD most likely struggles with something called intrusive thoughts. When a thought comes into your brain and it makes no sense to you. It can be something scary. It can be in the picture form where you think about an image. Intrusive thoughts can come out of nowhere. And everyone has different intrusive thoughts. But today I'm going to be talking about one that was specific to me and I still struggle with to this day. Thankfully not as bad as it was in the past, but the intrusive thought of stealing. So, when I was in the peak of my scrupulosity, religious OCD, I was extremely afraid of stealing. And most of you are probably thinking, how are you afraid of stealing? Like, everybody knows when you steal. It's obvious. It's you take something that's not yours. But in my brain, OCD likes to twist that around and ask the question, what if? What if? How do I know if this is mine? How do I know that I'm not stealing? So this is embarrassing for me to admit because it came in different forms, which I will now share. So when we went out to restaurants, if there was a soda fountain, I would be afraid that getting a refill would be stealing, because how do I know if you're supposed to pay for a refill? Because some places have that you have to pay for a refill. So I would walk up to my mom, even if she was sitting at a table with friends, and I didn't want to ask her this because it's embarrassing asking your mom for permission for everything, but I felt like I needed to do it. My mom never asked me to do that. I came up and asked her, like, Mom, can I have a refill? And she would say yes. She would probably get very annoyed, not knowing that this was OCD at the time. So I would go get a refill, okay? And I was just afraid that if I didn't know, then I could be stealing unintentionally, but still stealing. So this is funny because my mom said something that stuck with me about this, and she said, Hallie, if there's soda fountains out in the public, then that most likely means that the restaurant gives free refills because they're out. It's out in public where you can go get it yourself if they're not serving you. Like, that really stuck with me. I don't know why, because of maybe the logic of it. Like, okay, if it's out in the open, that means it's for me to go get a refill. I don't have to go up to the counter and pay for it and ask. So it's funny how sometimes you think logically and then sometimes you don't. Because the fact that I even think that I'm stealing doesn't make sense. But that stuck with me, and so I haven't really struggled with that a bunch since. And so that was just one of the ways that I felt like I was afraid of stealing. Another way that it got really, really, really bad, and this was starting when my mom started to notice, like, something is really wrong. So I had a fear of stealing food, kind of like the soda, but I had a fear of stealing food. So if I didn't know if something was mine, or even if I just had an intrusive thought, this food could have been stolen, like this could not be yours, I was afraid of swallowing, and I was afraid of stealing. I couldn't even swallow my own spit because I thought, what if I had eaten food that wasn't mine? If I swallow it, I'm stealing. So I literally asked permission from my mom to swallow my own spit. Like, that is the lowest of the low. It is bad. And when my mom noticed that something was really wrong was when I was spitting food out in the trash can, and she asked me, Hallie, what's wrong? I said, I didn't know if it was mine. That's crazy. But to me, it made sense because there was that what if. What if I was stealing? What if there was something in my room that was somehow possibly not mine? If it's in my room, I'm stealing. So I would come out of my room every few minutes to ask my mom, is it okay that that boot's in there? Mom, is it okay that that shelf is in there? Like, yes, of course it is. It just became very hard, as you can imagine. So we didn't know this at the time, but this fear of stealing is an intrusive thought. When an intrusive thought comes in your mind, normally you'll have a compulsion to act on it. My compulsion, okay, was to ask permission from my mom. Some people's intrusive thoughts, their compulsion might be to do something about it. Like if you have OCD with germs, you might think, oh my goodness, my hands are dirty. My compulsion is to wash them. Mine was, oh my goodness, what if I stole? I need to ask my mom if something is okay. This is reassurance seeking. You're asking someone to give you the answer that you want. You want to know that you are okay. I would ask my mom, am I stealing if I do this? And she would say yes or no, which actually was hurting me. And I'm not talking bad about my mom at all. She was so patient and kind. We just only knew what we knew at the time. Now, seeking reassurance is something that OCD feeds and thrives on. So what actually would have really helped me more at the time was when I asked these questions, what someone could respond to me with should have been something like, what do you think about it? So instead of saying yes or no and giving me the reassurance that I am craving, make me think about it. Make me think, is this okay? Because really what I'm doing is I'm wanting someone else to justify what I already know is okay. So I encourage you, if you know someone that's constantly asking you if something is a sin or if it's wrong, challenge them to think through it for themselves. Because giving an easy answer for yes or no for them is actually probably hurting them instead of helping them. I share all of this to shed light on intrusive thoughts. You may have different thoughts that pop up in your head than I do, but just know that when a thought comes, it does not make it true. When an intrusive thought comes, it's important to not hold tightly to it. And I am not perfect at this. Just yesterday, I really struggled and beat myself up over using a restroom at the gas station. So I walked into the restroom and I saw it said customers only. And so you immediately, that thought, like, paying customers only, I need to pay, which is a normal thought. I went to the restroom, and in my mind, I'm like, if I'm not paying, I'm using this toilet paper, I'm using the water and soap. So technically, if I'm not paying, I'm stealing. And these are just the thoughts that, come into my mind sometimes. And I realized, okay, as I go out, I'm probably just going to talk to someone up at the desk. And I was honestly really nervous. If it was a guy, I really didn't want to talk to them. And if it was our girl, I would have been a lot more comfortable. Just because I felt like, because I'm a girl, that might have been easier, but it was a guy up front. And so honestly, I just walked out and thought, okay, maybe I'll just get some gas. So I got in the car and I asked my husband, it said customers only. Does that mean paying customers? And I said, maybe we should get some gas. But then we decided to leave. And so this one was really hard for me. Because technically I feel like I stole in a sense. And I was talking it through with my husband because, he really challenges me on walking it through myself. What do you think? Because deep down I know that it's probably okay. If it was a law, somebody would have locked the door for you to pay. But the intrusive thought came and I freaked out. So I'm not perfect. Should I have paid? Yes, either way would have been fine, I think. And I say that, and 5 years ago, I would have freaked out. I would have thought that I was the worst person ever. But now I have to just realize to move on because I just have to. Because deep down, I know that it's probably okay. We didn't really need to get gas at the time, and I didn't really want to get a snack. I just used the restroom. Do I still feel guilty about it? I still feel the guilt a little bit, but I've got to just learn to let it go and know that my conscience is not God, So I'm not perfect. I obviously still have these thoughts and compulsions, but slowly learning to deal with them. So whatever intrusive thoughts that you may be dealing with, you are not the only person to have weird thoughts. I promise. I want to read something that may help you or anybody else that you know that is struggling with these intrusive thoughts and your conscience beating you up. So this book is called Becoming Free Indeed by Jinger Duggar Vuolo. This was one of the biggest books that helped me. I discovered it a few years ago. So she grew up in a very strict family, and they followed just a way of life that was very strict, and you were very focused on being perfect. And so I really connected with that. And the way that she told her story was filled with such grace and kindness, where I was never fearful, and it helped me so much. And so I want to read one of my favorite quotes from this book. So it says that her pastor provided this helpful definition of conscience. The conscience entreats you to do what you believe is right and restrains you from doing what you believe is wrong. But don't equate the conscience with the voice of God or the law of God. It is a human faculty that judges your actions and thoughts by the light of the highest standard you perceive. When you violate your conscience, it condemns you, triggering feelings of shame, anguish, regret, consternation, anxiety, and disgrace, and even fear. Conversely, when you follow your conscience, it commends you, bringing joy, serenity, self-respect, well-being, and gladness. What this quote means to me is that our conscience is not God. So sometimes our conscience makes something right and wrong to us. Like to younger Hallie, my conscience was saying getting a refill was wrong. And if I asked permission from my mom and I knew it was okay, my conscience commended me. Good job. You're making sure. If I didn't, then my conscience would have condemned me and made me feel horrible. You don't know if you're stealing or not. So your conscience is not God. Because we are fallen and sinful, our conscience is going to lie to us sometimes. So I really hope that helps somebody who is struggling with that and with these intrusive thoughts. An intrusive thought that comes into your mind does not make it true. Okay? Now, the last thing that I want to leave us with is a verse, and I'll read the passage just so you get a little bit more context, because I never want to use something out of context. So if I am, please feel free to message me, because I love always learning about more context of Scripture. So the verse is from 1 John 3:19-23. This is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in His presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from Him anything we ask, because we keep His commands and do what pleases Him. And this is His command, to believe in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as He commands us. The key part of that passage that I really want to highlight: if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. God knows my heart. God knows your heart because He made it. He knows the conscience because He made it. Okay? God is above all, so we can trust that He loves us and He wants what is good for us. All right? So I just wanted to leave you with that today, and just know that your intrusive thoughts that you think are so embarrassing and so humiliating, more people struggle with that than you know. And an intrusive thought does not make it true. An intrusive thought comes, okay, but you don't have to act on it. So thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to see you again on the next episode.